Thank you, Patrick. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending today's Healthcare IT News webinar, Improving Epic Identities Patient Matching, a case study, sponsored by Verato. I'm Beth Sanborn, Managing Editor at HIMSS Media, and I'll be your moderator today. EHR systems, while they've made great strides in development, still have a foundational component that is far from ideal, the Master Patient Index. And while many health information management professionals hoped EHR systems, MPIs, might solve their patient matching headaches, they're facing a familiar problem: long task lists of flagged potential matches needing review and remediation, and duplicate rates of 20% or higher. Speaking today will be Alan Willis, the Executive Director of HealtheConnection at Northeast Georgia Health System, and Joaquim Nito is Vice President of Healthcare at Verato. And with that, I'll hand it over to Joaquim to begin the presentation.
Terrific. Thanks a lot. Just first, real quick, I'll just do a quick introduction of Verato. So we're a startup company based just outside of D.C. in McLean, Virginia. We have a long history of working in this patient identity space, so we have lots of experience from of folks that have been in and around this industry for a long time. The master data management and master patient index space. We've put tons of effort into developing this new approach to patient identity, and I'll give a little bit of background on that before I hand things off to Alan to give you some real-world explanation of how the approach benefits healthcare organizations. We've got a whole bunch of great clients like Alan's HealtheConnection organization that span across different sectors of the healthcare industry. We work with providers, payers, health information exchanges, all aspects of the healthcare ecosystem. So real quick introduction. Basically what we do, like I said, we're laser focused on this problem of identity in healthcare, and we offer basically traditional MPI services, but with a new approach, and I'll touch on that a little bit. We're cloud-based solutions, and I'll get into the main difference in our approach, which is this idea of referential matching. So we have an MPI solution that uses this technology, and then we also have what we call Auto-Steward, and this is really what we're here to talk about today. This is what Alan and his team took advantage of to improve the quality of their data within their Epic system. And essentially what the idea is that we can layer this technology in on top of your existing identity infrastructure. So if you already have a MPI that you've invested a lot of energy into, a lot of time into, or if you have an EHR that is kind of the center of your universe from a patient identity perspective, then we've got services that allow you to layer in this referential matching technology on top of that and improve the quality of your patient data within those systems that you already use today. So I'll get into this a little bit more, give just a little bit more background on the problem space and how we're approaching it with this referential matching technology, and then I'll get things handed over to Alan here. It shows Alan as the fifth bullet here, but it won't be that long till you get to hear his story, I promise. So before we get into that, it looks like we've got quite a few folks on the webinar today, which is great. We thought what we might do is just do a quick poll here to see what drivers are at top of mind for the folks on the call today. When we're working with our clients here at Verato, we see that this patient identity problem is appearing in all sectors of the business. So again, kind of regardless what part of the healthcare ecosystem your organization is in, or regardless where you sit within your organization, there are any number of use cases that are impacted by patient data quality, and specifically, having a complete 360-degree view of your patient. So if you're looking at the big picture and trying to improve population health for all of your members or patients or the people in your community, or if you are concerned with strategic aspects like acquiring new facilities and how the data gets integrated there, this patient matching idea is a huge concern with respect to that. If you're on the clinical side, obviously, and responsible for physicians and caregivers coordinating care across sites, or simply trying to find the best treatment options for patients, it's obviously critical to have a complete collection of clinical data from across what could be many different sites and many different EMRs. Or if you're in kind of the back office critical functions of data management and are actually tasked with day-to-day managing the quality of data that you have, knowing that data quality rolls up to all the other parts of your organization. These are all different portions of the organization that we see people focused on this patient identity problem. So we thought we'd put a quick poll up, and as you've seen those sort of typical drivers there, if you can go ahead and take 2 minutes and scroll through this list, you should be able to select more than one option. You can scroll down on the right. So just take a second, mark a couple of the top priorities for your concerns for patient identity, and we'll get a feel for the folks on the call today what the focus areas are. Maybe while we're collecting those stats, maybe Alan, maybe you want to jump in and sort of give a little preview on the description you'll have later about what your organization was worried about when you started looking at this problem.
Sure, Joaquin, thank you very much. So, yeah, I'm probably a lot like everyone else on the line. All of those are key strategic priorities for us and were goals. I probably could have selected every single one of those as being those key drivers. But from an HIE perspective, I would say that data integration was one. The longitudinal patient record, that's a key part for us as we began to think beyond being an HIE to really providing population health management services and tools. So the population health component is another, was a key driver for us in what we did and why we chose to use Verato for this initiative. Excellent. Great. Yeah, and I see as the results are coming in, they're I think actually pretty consistent with your items there you mentioned. Let's see. See if we can get this to pop up for everyone here. These results. I'm going to try this. All right. So hopefully you all can see the results here. Looks like we've got improved patient experience up here at the top. There we go. Looks like that popped up. Someone took care of that for me. We've had improved patient experience up here at the top at 62%. Population health, reduced costs up in the 30s. Longitudinal patient record, clinical quality analytics in the 40%. I'll scroll through here so everyone can kind of see where those answers are. Some other high ratings, integration like Alan mentioned, and then this idea of reducing manual effort. Which goes directly to the stewardship queues that people are working. So it's interesting. We've done this poll once or twice before, and we do see this widespread of concerns. And so it just kind of raises the point of how central this patient identity problem is to an organization, and why it's important to take a systematic approach to it, because it does touch all portions of the organization, and so if it's something you get right, then the organization can really benefit from it. Great. Well, thanks for taking the time to do that. So as we go through here, I'll just spend a couple more minutes teeing this up. One of the things I did want to mention, we talked about how this problem affects individual organizations and individual parts of an organization. There's also recently been a whole lot of activity kind of at the higher level, specifically the national level, recognizing this as a real problem and an opportunity to help address the problems in the healthcare system. So we just want to kind of provide a brief update if folks weren't aware of all these things that have been happening. The Government Accountability Office recently drafted a sort of a request for a national patient matching strategy, and we've had some interaction with some Senate and House members around that. The Pew Charitable Trust is an organization that has actually put a lot of really good work and effort into trying to identify problems with the current state of things with interoperability and analytics, as those are impacted by patient matching and having the ability to identify a patient across organizations, regardless of institution. Another big development just a few months ago was the release of ONC's new exchange framework called TEFCA. Another attempt that a lot of effort was put into to create a better way to establish interoperability, again, across organizations, across states, throughout the whole nation. So all of these things we think are really good, sign of sort of recognizing that there are ways to improve this process around identifying a patient. And then I think it also goes back to, just increased understanding, especially as consumer gets more engaged in their own healthcare, that it's important to get this, critically important to get this right and get our complete view of every patient or member as accurate as possible. So real quick, the historical approach to this problem, there were kind of two ways that over the last 10 or 20 years organizations have tried to attack this problem. So one is the idea of consolidating to a single record for a patient, and within an individual organization, this is something that's possible. So you've seen organizations who may have grown up over time and had multiple EHRs for multiple specialty systems, separate billing applications, specialty applications, lab systems, and over time made the decision, if we could just consolidate these into a single platform, then that would reduce this problem of having disconnected records. So that was one approach, this sort of consolidation approach. And then the other approach was to invest in a standalone master patient index, or MDM, solution that could sit across your multiple systems, do this identity resolution, and tie all those systems together underneath a complete view of a patient. So our sort of what we've realized is that that approach worked pretty well, and especially 10 years ago when most organizations were dealing with just a handful of systems that they either had to integrate or consolidate. So for organizations that had 3 or 4 EHRs, it was practical to consolidate those into one, or to implement a standalone MPI technology, build up some software from scratch even that would connect all of these things together. What we're seeing today is that the complexity of the problem has just ballooned, that's happened for a couple of different reasons. One is just the proliferation of data. So there's just so much more data available, the big data, the connected devices, all of these things are generating much more data than before. There are many more systems that are involved now, contributing useful information, whether it's to the consumer or to physicians or to researchers. There's just so much more data out there as inputs, and it's just a much more complex number of systems coming into the equation. And then on the flip side, the consumption of the data. There's a lot more places where this data is being consumed. So there's coordination of care across organizations. There's incredibly advanced new approaches to analytics. There's been traction on the interoperability front with HIEs getting adoption. So the visibility into the data is increasing as well. So those two things combined have kind of made the traditional approach to patient identity, not able to keep up. So one of the reasons for that is that the traditional approach, the way it works is you're looking at a couple records and trying to figure out if they're the same, represent the same person or not. And so you had algorithms, probabilistic, deterministic, heuristic algorithms, however you want to describe them, that would look at these records side by side and determine that, yes, they're the same person, or no, they're not the same person, if it was, husband and wife or family members or something like that. Or if it was impossible to know whether they were the same, then MPIs were designed to create these tasks and put them into a queue for manual data stewards to go in and work. So this is the traditional HIM approach, consolidating duplicate charts back in the day, just translated into the electronic environment. And so that's how most of these this patient identification processes were created, assuming that you would feed these any questions into this manual process for stewards to resolve. And at small scales, that works just fine. As the scale increases, as we just talked about with the complexity of data, then that kind of becomes unsustainable. And that's sort of where we are, where we've ended up today. So if you're trying to get to the AMS level of accuracy for your patient data, you're kind of left with these two options. So one is that you have a big investment in a team of full-time staff or outsourced resources that can go in and work these exceptions and work these queues that show up in your identity systems, whether these are within your EHR or in a dedicated MPI. You have these staff that spend time doing this. Or if you don't have the luxury to have those staff, you have other data quality issues that those staff need to be working on, then the alternative is to use whatever the legacy algorithms were able to accomplish on their own, given the data that's come out of your EHRs, and have just enough people to kind of react when things go wrong. So you may have one or two resources that can answer the phone when physicians see that there's two charts that are duplicate and information is split across them, or if there's a billing error and you need to resolve data quality issues, then you can do that reactively. And if you're in that situation, then you probably have this sort of backlog of manual work that's just building up that you just have to react to over time. And neither of those are obviously the ideal state to be in. So the way we're approaching it with this Verato Steward idea is that we have this a nationwide database of demographics. So we basically have a kind of a nationwide MPI that's available for access to healthcare organizations only, and that powers what we call a referential matching. So when we're looking to decide if two clinical records or if a member record and some clinical data are representing the same person, we use this nationwide reference database as a resource and use that to help get the right answer to a matching decision. And the reason that this works very well is because it's a very high quality data set, and oftentimes the data that you see inside of a EHR or other healthcare system, can have any number of data issues with it. We've seen done some research that up to 30% of the data elements when it comes to the identifying information, things like names and addresses and birth dates for your patients inside of an EHR, up to 30% of that can be incorrect or out of date, right? People move, say 18% of the population moves every year. There are other real world events where data changes and gets stale. And everyone knows the number of, sort of data entry errors that happen inside of a registration environment, especially, in an ER setting where things can happen quickly. So anyway, all of these things are caused by this underlying data quality issues. So having this referential database of high quality data provides a huge uplift in being able to get the right identity up front. And so that's the approach. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And the idea is that just exposing that through an easy to use mechanism, being a cloud-based service, makes this much more consumable than the traditional approach that required such a heavy lift to get integrated into a software environment. So just on this reference database that kind of underpins this solution and is really the reason why HealtheConnection was able to get the results they were able to get, is we're taking these very large number of records from known data sets that have high quality information, and we're combining that with a immense amount of effort into data science for how to process this data, how to curate it, how to ensure it's the highest level of quality. And so we take this data from multiple different sources, we combine it into this longitudinal demographic profile for each person, and this gives us a very rich set of information that we can use when we're trying to resolve the identity of information that our clients have inside of their EHRs. So the way that works, just conceptually, is if you think about a traditional approach to deciding if two records are owned by the same person, what you have to do is you have to take those two records and you put them side by side, and you look and see if the names are the same and the addresses are the same, the birth dates are the same, and if they are, then it's the same person. If they don't line up correctly, then the systems determine they're different people. Or if they're somewhat close, they go into this idea of this task queue for manual resolution by data stewards. And the problem with that is that since the underlying data quality is marginal in many of these systems, you can see misalignment when the records really are held by the same person. So if you incorporate the idea of this reference database, then even if the data from the two medical records are misaligned or out of date, you can still get the right answer because you're using this answer key, this trusted source, to bridge the gap between the data quality problems that exist in the medical records themselves. So that's the fundamental idea. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, but want to at least kind of lay the foundation for what this technology is about, and then the way it fits in here is that you, like I said before, you plug it into your existing MPI, whether that's inside of an EHR or whether that's a standalone MDM type system. And you can do this in a couple different ways. The idea is you're taking these tasks, these questions that would normally go to a team of stewards, and you're calling our cloud-based service instead. So you can do that in real time, kind of one by one as they get created. And we have a lot of clients who integrate directly with our services into a variety of different MPIs and EHRs. And you could also do it in batch. And that's what Alan's going to get into, as we did a project as part of a migration with HealtheConnection that did this in bulk. So did hundreds of thousands of these evaluations in a short period of time. So we make these decisions on these tasks, acting the role of a data steward, and then we reply back with the answers. So yes, these are the same patient, or no, they're different patients. And that's the piece of information that you can use to feed directly back into your existing identity system. And again, the result is the same results you would get from having a human do it, but you're able to automate it and do this in bulk. All right, so that's the idea. So with that prelude, let me hand it over to Alan, and you can give a little background on HealtheConnection and talk to folks through your work.
Great, thank you, Joaquin, very much, and thanks to HIMSS for giving me an opportunity to come and share our success story. A little bit about HealtheConnection. HealtheConnection is a regional health information exchange based out of Gainesville, Georgia. Gainesville is about an hour northeast of Atlanta. We serve a 23-county service area, so there's 19 counties in Georgia, so it's kind of the upper right-hand quadrant of the state of Georgia. We also serve 3 states in southern North Carolina and 1 state in western South Carolina. And so HealtheConnection was actually started about 7 years ago in 2011 by a group of 4 healthcare providers in our local community of Gainesville who came together and said, while we are competing with each other for the healthcare patient and the healthcare dollar, we know where healthcare is going in the next 5, 10, 15 years, and we know we're going to need to collaborate at the same time as compete. And so they created HealtheConnection with a vision of really improving community collaboration through clinical integration. And so we started our efforts piloting with 3 or 4 sites with a mission of really just aggregating, sharing, facilitating, retrieving information on shared patients back and forth between providers and providers. And that was very effective. That's a typical health information exchange use case. And we did that for a number of years. Again, piloted it with 4 organizations, worked out all the bugs and kinks, and actually started kind of full-blown implementation in September of 2013. And so we started doing that and have been very effective at getting organizations to participate with us. We actually have 11 organizations, 3 physician groups, and 8 hospitals that are participating in our health information exchange. And again, been very successful in aggregating a bunch of information. We get ADT information from these data contributors. We get results, which would be lab results and pathology results, microbiology. We get radiology reports. We get other transcribed documents, office notes, discharge summaries, the typical documents you would get from a healthcare provider. We receive all of those documents via our health information exchange. We've got a fairly robust repository now. We've probably got in excess of 20 to 25 million results in our HIE. We also have over 7 million continuity of care documents, which are the meaningful use documents that most EMR vendors are able to produce. And we have those in a central data repository that we utilize for a number of purposes. We've got about 1.5 million patients in our MPI within the HIE. So again, a lot of patients, probably a high percentage of the patients in our geography, or at least we have one record in our HIE. We're in over 350 sites across our region and across our communities. So organizations are utilizing this tool and our tools to get information on their patients all day, every day. Last month, we averaged about 50,000 queries into our HIE on a monthly basis. So I think we've been very successful in getting our initiative adopted by a lot of our providers in our communities. So, so the typical HIE use case, again, was where we started. And then in 2016, we started asking ourselves, we're doing a lot of great stuff. We're aggregating a lot of good information. We're sharing good information with providers. But what do providers really want? They really want information that is actionable. So we have this great repository, but we're not really giving that. We're giving them information that they may need, but what kind of information will they want in order to really be able to take action and improve the quality of care, lower costs, and improve access to care? And really what we came to, we pulled a group together, and they said what we really are looking for is actionable intelligence through advanced analytics. And so we kind of changed our mission statement from really just being an aggregator and facilitator of sharing and retrieval of information to one of creating value for our members. And the value that they really wanted was through that actionable intelligence using advanced analytics and recognizing that while accountable care and value-based reimbursement is not prevalent in our community, in our market right now, we know that that's where we need to be. And we believe that the HIE has the foundation in order to really provide that service and provide those tools to the providers in our communities. And so we kind of took a fork in the road and said, that really that is HealtheConnection 2.0, as we came to call it, which is really moving to a greater use case, a greater value proposition than just health information exchange, but one to more population health. So on the slide, you'll also see that a couple of our real advantages that we talk to when we talk to our providers. One is improving access, giving physicians access to clinical records anywhere they need it, anytime they need it, in any way that they need it to provide care at their sites. And then easy collaboration. We see that members can see all the information on their patients in one single place, not having to log into a whole bunch of other portals or a lot of other tools. They can go to one-stop shop, get most of their information in one single place. So that's a little bit about HealtheConnection. So our opportunity, so we use Cerner, Clinical Exchange Platform, as our health information exchange infrastructure. Been on that tool now for a couple of years. We previously were on a product called MobileMD, which was also a Cerner product, but we migrated to CEP in September of 2016. And as we begin to look at, providing population health and clinical analytics, we began to evaluate other solutions to say, well, what solutions could we possibly deploy that would leverage the tools that we have within Cerner and leverage that infrastructure to still be able to provide the tools that we're looking for from the future around population health and care management. And so we were working very closely with Northeast Georgia Health System, which is our anchor partner from an HIE perspective. And Northeast Georgia Health System was in the process of going through an EMR implementation or EMR selection process, and they ultimately selected Epic as their EMR. And Epic has some really great tools around population health with a platform or an application called Healthy Planet that we really want to take advantage of. And so we saw the ability to leverage our Cerner platform with the Epic platform to be able to offer the Epic toolset to our regional members. But in order to do that, we had to basically provide the data that we have in our HIE to the Epic platform so that we could begin doing the aggregation also in Epic and be able to apply and offer those population health tools. Well, one of the early ahas for us was, we're going to have to integrate our MPI. And we're really going to have to try to maintain simultaneous MPIs between Epic and between Cerner. And by the way, this decision was made in January, and our MPI go live was not October 1st. The MPI go live was actually August 1st of 2017. The ultimate implementation was live. The go live day was October 1st, but from an MPI perspective, we actually went live about 2.5-3 months earlier, which was August 1st. So we had a very short window to really evaluate how we were going to accomplish this MPI integration and conversion from the Cerner platform into the Epic platform, and then create a mechanism that will allow us, when we do make changes in the Epic platform, those changes come back into Cerner, and we're able to maintain a synchronization of the MPIs between the Cerner platform and the Epic platform. So that was our project. In terms of the challenges that posed to us, other than just the timeline itself, which was only 8 months for us to figure out how to do this and how to resolve it, but we also had a pretty big duplicate problem within the Cerner application. We were probably unlike a lot of HIEs in the market right now, which is limited staff. I have a staff of 4 people, one of which is a designated MPI analyst. But for the longest time in our HIE, our MPI was not our biggest concern. Our biggest concern was getting data in, getting people signed up, getting people to use the system, and kind of the MPI was a little bit of an afterthought. And so as a result of that, our MPI got pretty bad. At the time that we started this project, we were running about a 20% potential duplicate rate. We were getting more potential duplicates in every day than that one resource could potentially even manage. So our duplicate problem just continued to increase and increase and increase. And it would have taken that one person probably 2 or 3 years to resolve all the duplicates that we potentially had or that we did have into the application. And so we had to look for a better alternative, a more efficient alternative, if we were going to get to a August 1st MPI go live. So those were the challenges that we incurred. So what did we actually do? And this kind of picture gives you a little bit of a snapshot. So, we had incoming data into Cerner. Cerner has a matching algorithm associated with it. And so we first sent all those ADTs through Cerner. Cerner, provided matching on whatever it could. And then we had an MPI list. what we did is we took an extract out of the MPI, of the CERN MPI, and we put that into Identity, the Epic Identity solution, which is Epic's MPI platform. And we put that through Identity, and Identity then applied its matching algorithm to that patient base. And from that, we were able to say, yep, there's a high percentage of those that we were able to match on. We're good to go. There's a high percentage of those that didn't match at all, and those are good because those are all new patients. And then we had this number of patients that we didn't really know that were the potential duplicates. And what we did is that we sent Verato the listing of, I think it was about 140,000 accounts, about 70-some thousand pairs of accounts that we sent to Verato as just a file extract. I think it was actually sent in Excel. We sent that up to Verato as part of the batch process. And then Verato took that file and ran that file through their Auto-Steward application and then provided us with those positive responses, meaning those that were absolutely matched to a high degree, those that didn't really match at all, and then those that even Verato were unsure as to whether those matched or not. And then from that information, we then worked with the health system's HIM department and tried to get them comfortable. This was a stretch for us as an organization because this is not typical. I tell people all the time that the Verato tool is disruptive technology because this is very different than anything that HIM departments have ever been accustomed to seeing. And so it took a little bit of time, a little bit of effort to really get our HIM department comfortable with the fact that I'm not going to necessarily look at supporting documentation. I'm not going to look at driver's licenses. I'm not going to look at the things that you typically look at to make decisions, positive decisions about whether two accounts need to be merged or not. We know that the merge concept is one that we all take very seriously, and if we don't merge things or things are merged inappropriately, that the impact, potential impact, negative impact associated with doing something like that is significant. So we take our responsibility around the MPI very seriously, and so getting our HIM department really comfortable with utilizing referential matching and utilizing data sets that, quite frankly, none of us would ever even have access to had it not been for Verato was a challenge. It's probably our greatest challenge throughout this project is just getting buy-in and support for utilizing the Verato tool. So what did we find out of all of this? We had just an unbelievable success rate. Again, we processed about 140,000 records through the Auto-Steward application. We got 60% confirmation, or 60% what we call Y's and N's. Those are the definitive yeses and the definitive no's. Those were straightforward. We were able to load those accounts directly into Epic without any problem. And as a result, that represented about 86,000 of the 140,000 records that we were able to very quickly and very easily resolve. Again, we started this project in June, maybe mid-June of 2017, and we went live with our MPI in August. So that's roughly a 2.5 month or 1.5 month timeline that we were able to get through 86,000 accounts, which probably would have taken my one resource a year and a half to do. So to be able to do that in 1.5 months versus 1.5 years was incredible. And as a result of that, we were able to meet our deadlines and have a very positive and successful go live. So, again, I can't echo enough how successful this tool is. One of the things that you may be asking yourself, well, did you consider other solutions? And the answer to that is no. One, I'm not sure there are other solutions in the marketplace that are doing the things that Verato are doing, specifically in the healthcare space. The other reason is we just didn't have time. I mean, our backs were against the wall. We had to get this done relatively quickly, and utilizing a tool like that, we didn't really have the time to go to the market and say there are other people to do it. We said this is a crapshoot. I hate to say it. This is a crapshoot that that if we didn't get the success that we were looking for, it really wasn't going to cost us a whole lot. It wouldn't cost a whole lot of time. But if we were able to achieve the outcomes that we were looking for, then this was going to be a raving success. And so I'm happy to say that this was a raving success, and I attribute it very, very highly to the Verato team and the work that they did. So with that being said, I'll turn it back over to Joaquin, and you can go through more of the technical details of our project.
Right on. Thanks, Alan. That's great. I'm sure there's a lot of good questions queuing up for you here. So I'll just take a couple more minutes. And like you said, build out a little bit of the technical story so people get a view for what this looks like. As before I get into that, just a couple things are interesting. One, you brought up the portion of the project working with the HIM team to getting buy-in to the results. I think that's a really important point to bring up. As we went through this project, and we're familiar with this with many of our implementations, there's kind of parallel threads. One is the actual programmatic work. So getting the data, running it through our APIs, and getting the answers, and that happens. And so as that was going on with the HealtheConnection project, we were kind of in parallel, working very closely with Alan's HIM team, and helping them understand what was happening, and figuring out how best to take those results and get them integrated in the environment with very high confidence. So I'm glad you mentioned that part of the project, because that is key to, not just a Verato project, but any project that impacts this identity function, because it is so core. You have to make sure that you've got a process that you can get through with extremely high confidence in the end. So just to kind of paint the picture for what this looks like, the other interesting thing, we're describing the integration with Epic, but really this was a project that involved Cerner as well, and that's something that we see working with clients is there really are no two environments that are exactly alike. The combination of technologies that you see, not just the EHR, but potentially the presence of an MPI or multiple MPIs. We have clients that have not just 2, 3, 4, 5 EHRs, but we have clients that have 2, 3, 4 MPIs. They're out there as well. Likewise with interface engines. Another key piece of the puzzle here, it's the interface engines that are handling all the traffic for these identity transactions. And again, each one of those is a little bit different. Organizations oftentimes have more than one of those. So our mission is to be able to slot into any of these profiles, regardless of what these other technical components are. We really want, the Verato technology to just be a resource for all the other components, necessary components of the healthcare IT landscape that are involved in IT. They should just be able to have this, resource. However it needs to plug in, it can be plugged in, and can ensure that you get the right answer with, the minimum amount of, effort and latency as you can. So getting back to just show you the picture of what this looked like. For the actual Epic integration here, Alan described the process. They did the load of the Cerner data into Epic. It produced the list of tasks out of Epic Identity. Alan's team was able to extract those through the reporting module in Epic. Epic Clarity does a nice job of laying out what those tasks are, and so you can get a listing of those very, very easily, much like you can do through other MPI and MDM systems. You can extract out those list of tasks. Not all EHRs and MPIs make it easy to do that, but Epic has a very clear-cut process for that. And then, as Alan mentioned, for the HealtheConnection project, we basically just took that whole file and processed that whole file. Behind the scenes, the Verato platform is all API-based, and so basically we're calling the real-time APIs that we expose to all of our clients for ongoing operations. But we can do that using a batch file. So in a project like this that has a critical time dimension to it, this migration process, we're able to just take that, a couple 100,000 records, or we've done it for larger volumes too, and kind of run them through all at once. Then the next stop is, once we obtain those answers to the tasks, we provide those back to Alan and his team, and they were able to transform those results into the specific HL7 merge message that Epic can accept to the merge. And so that's a critical part of this piece too. That's another area that varies pretty widely when you look across the different EHR and MPI technologies are out there. There are different mechanisms that you can use to get an answer of whether two records are the same or not into those systems. And with Epic, the best way to do that is through a merge transaction. One of the things that we worked very closely with Alan's team on there was the interplay between those merge messages and kind of the enforcement of all the business rules that exist in Epic today. So, you can configure your EHRs to have important business rules about when you can and can't merge patient records. If they're in the facility, for example, you don't want to do a merge, rules like that. By using this HL7 interface with Epic, you're able to honor all of those rules. And so you don't have to go inventing new processes. You're basically just tapping into the behavior of the system that you've already set up. And that's the end result there, is that you get these merges performed, and you're using all of the logic with your primary identity system to perform that merge and ensure that it happens correctly. So that was a description of this batch process that we used. Like I said, this same process can work on an ongoing basis, and this is just kind of visualization of that. Extracting out the tasks as they get created. That can be something that you do on a daily basis, or even more frequently. And then the interface engine that you have inside of your facility managing our traffic can simply make a call to our cloud service. So you don't have to be sending files back and forth. When we implement on an ongoing basis, rather than for a migration project, this is typically the way that it works. Is the organization's interface engine will simply call our APIs, get a response back with this answer, yes, they're the same, or no, they're not. And as Alan mentioned before, we don't always have the answer. So sometimes it's unknown, even with the data we have on file. And we return that back, and then that flows through your process, again, the existing identity solution that you have. Okay, so I just wanted to provide sort of a visual on what that looks like. So in the end, the idea, just to reinforce this idea of the matching resources, our goal really is to make this an asset that organizations can plug in, like I said, regardless of your environment. So the APIs that we have are fairly simple. There's a lot of complexity happening under the covers with the reference data, but the interactions are pretty straightforward. Our entire business, this is our entire business, is patient identity. And so we were built from the ground up to do this as a cloud service. We've got pretty much every certification in the book, from high trust to SOC 2. And our architecture is made to be able to, for us to be able to scale up. So as Alan mentioned, he was not unique in having a tight time frame to work on. And so we find that there's often these compelling events coming up, having to do with a migration or rollout of some new software, or end of year clinical quality calculations, or something like that. There's very often needs to get this identity problem solved quickly, and so we've built this solution to be able to scale up very rapidly to meet those kinds of needs. So just to wrap up here, hopefully what we covered today was the basic problem, recognition across the industry that patient matching is sort of as important a problem and as big a challenge now as it has been, and lots of organizations are investing in continuing to improve the way they deal with this issue. And then the Auto-Steward solution in particular, but the general approach, we hope this is something that's very easily consumable by different parts of the industry to make patient identity resolution much better than it has been. And then yeah, the HealtheConnection team, and you know, kind of, I think is good representative, especially because, you know, they're an HIE, but worked very closely with the sponsoring health system, and kind of representative of the idea that there's lots of different profiles of organizations that, you know, need help in this area of patient identity, and we're hoping to be able to provide that to, you know, organizations big and small, regardless of type. In the end, you're all dealing with the same set of patients, and if we can have a common approach, an easily deployable approach to dealing with those decisions at the patient level, then hopefully we can, you know, make a big impact. So I think we've got about 8 minutes left. Do we have questions that we want to take on from the audience?
Hi everyone, this is Beth Sanborn jumping back in. We do have a few questions, and I want to remind all of our participants today that they can feel free to enter any questions that they might have into the question bar as we get going with these first few questions. Right now we only have a few. I'm sure that there are more lingering out there. So as we start our Q&A discussion, just want to remind people that you can feel free to start answering other questions you might have. So we'll start with this one. If I already have an EMPI product, can I still use the plugin?
Yeah, good question. And the answer is for sure. So if we're just looking at this idea of Auto-Steward, which is automatically resolving a queue of potential duplicates, or some folks call potential linkage tasks. Yeah, that can either be done directly for an EHR, like we talked about here, or for an MPI. And it turns out that we've actually done, I think we've done more of these in conjunction with an MPI. So the IBM Initiates, the Mirths, organizations like that, layering in on top of those EMPIs, as we have for layering on the EHR. So that's a great use case. Actually, with the MPIs are kind of, you know, they were built to be inserted in between many different applications. So the integration point and the touch point for how you get a merge decision to be implemented inside of the MPI, that actually tends to even be a little bit more straightforward. So that's a very good fit, layering this in on top of the existing EMPI.
Okay, we have another question. How long does it take to implement?
Yeah, so Alan, you were saying it was about, I think you said it was about a month and a half for your team, right?
That's correct.
Yep, and that was good. That was fast. So I wouldn't want to set everyone's expectations to do what the HealtheConnection team did, but actually it's not that's not out of line. We do have other clients. HealthX is another HIE based in the Manhattan HIE, which is very big HIE. They implemented this service on top of an EMPI, to that last question. And actually they did 6 weeks too. And we're up and running, actually resolving tasks within that time frame. So that's an aggressive time frame, but for organizations that have a need and are ready to mobilize, it can be done that quickly.
Okay, a couple more questions. Does Verato work with Athena Health EMR?
Athena Health is actually one that we'll have to check on. We do, like I said, have worked with quite a wide variety of EMRs and EHRs. I don't know of Athena implementation off the top of my head, so I'm happy to check with that and get back with the responder. I do know that Athena is a cloud-based EHR. They are pretty modern and have known for being reasonably open. So I don't foresee any issues getting integrated with them. But I'll have to check to see if we've done it.
Okay, and a final question. So again, anyone with questions that you haven't entered yet, please do so. This is our last question as I have it right now. One participant is asking, we are not cloud-based as of yet, but can we still benefit from the Auto-Steward?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, absolutely. So you don't have to have a cloud-based EHR or MPI in order to use Auto-Steward. So, I'd say the majority of our clients have on-premise. It's pretty even distribution, I guess, of having on-premise installations of the EHR, the MPI. And so we've got a lot of experience basically connecting your behind the firewall interface engine to our cloud service. And so there's obviously, security that you have to get set up and do that. But, like I said, I think the majority of our clients are actually operating in that sort of hybrid mode. So that's very doable.
Okay, great. Well, that's the last of our questions, so at this time we do have to wrap it up. Thank you again to Alan and Joaquin for your very informative presentation. We appreciate your time and your expertise today. Please be sure to complete the evaluation at the end of today's event and share your thoughts with us. And as a reminder, today's session will be available on demand until March 27th, 2019 through the HIMSS Learning Center. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.